Folks, welcome back to the iHealth channel, iHealth Radio, with your host, Hurricane H. New day, new show, excellent topic. Today's guest has a story that reminds us that healing and transformation don't always follow a straight line. Mike Wood faced struggles with anxiety, depression, and self doubt for much of his life. He learned to read at 25 years old and spent decades searching for answers, understanding, and peace with himself. That journey led him toward a deeper exploration of self awareness, subconscious patterns, emotional healing, and personal growth. Today, through his Learn to Love Being You program, Mike helps people examine the beliefs and inner narratives that may be shaping how they think, feel, and experience life. Please welcome Mike Wood. Mike, welcome to the show, brother. We're gonna have some
Thank
fun.
you. Yeah, I'm ready for it. Thank you for having me on your show.
Yeah, well, no, it's a pleasure, and again, what a story! It's not something you hear every day, and so we're gonna start with the stuff. Like, how did that happen? What happened? I mean, tell us the story like itself. Like, I mean, not being able to do that at an early age. I mean, until a later age, that's a big question. And someone that just heard my intro be like, "Well, come on, tell us more." So, hey, tell us more.
Okay. Yeah, so I was born with a rare form of dyslexia that is hereditary. I wasn't formally diagnosed with it until I was in my late 30s when my kid was being diagnosed with it. And so the schools when I was growing up in California, they didn't understand, and they kind of pushed me around from this class to that class trying to figure out where I fit. And ultimately I just ended up in the basic classes, and I was able to uh, search keywords and scramble through. Extremely embarrassed when I was called on to read out loud or something. The teachers typically didn't call on me twice because it was so embarrassing for everybody. And so, I had a lot of, you know, anxiety, depression that kind of followed a lot of that. Just, old negative core beliefs that just said I was dumb, and long after I learned how to read at 25, those voices continued on. And yeah, it was a struggle, but honestly, looking back, I wouldn't trade it for anything. It shaped me in ways that I'm extremely grateful for. And with every negative, there's a positive. And the positive was that I was extremely intelligent, like problem solving skills. I could do math in my head when I was very little. And so I had a sense of intelligence to carry with me, and I was able to problem solve and get myself through high school. Barely, but I did. And I've been able to use those skills in business, and they've benefited me once I was able to learn how to read and kind of get a shovel out of my hand and get into an office where I could take advantage of some of it.
Well, Mike, so it's interesting. First of all, you mentioned dyslexia as a something that's inherited, which is, I mean, to be honest with you, the first time I heard that that can be inherited as uh, n- a form of, I guess, inability to take things, to absorb, I
Yeah.
guess, information. But that's the thing, like, I love what you said. Like, that was, I think this is the part that some people, sometimes have, a lack of understanding, and especially at that age, because I'm, and I'm going to ask, about some of the challenges you experienced, in the first 25 years, because I know that kids can be brutal, and
Oh, yes.
especially when you're in programs that are, special programs, and I guess even that didn't work because you had to go in a mainstream class, and I know that, and again, I know today they have the IEP classes. Those things are, interesting because you can have, separate, additional instructor, teacher, someone to help you. There's different pace, different testing.
Mhm.
It didn't sound like they give you that option. You wind up in
Mm-mm.
the main class, in which some people can be like, hey, look at this guy, look at that guy, and that's bullying 101, and we hear about that's a very big
Yeah.
problem. And but you, and by the way, you were able to do the math, to do all the complex stuff. the idea of reading, was, the problem, right? But
Yeah.
yet these people, will call upon that and they'll bug on you. So 25 years in the making, you had to have these challenges, facing different people. Can you just share, with our audiences some of those challenges and how you were able to face them and get rid of them and even kind of beat them up? I mean, because to be honest with
Yeah.
you, um, what you're sharing today is probably something that people can relate to anywhere in the world, and
Yeah.
if not themselves, they know someone, or their children that may have, some sort of a, inability or an ability, but it's not, exposed to the level that they needs to be. A lot of kids sometimes they go through programs. We know of autism, for example. That's one thing. Dyslexia is another. So we have all kind of, situations that parents may not understand. Sometimes, there's studies, and even the schools, they do these testing and all the assessment stuff. But, if the program is not available to you, it's difficult. But the challenges could be either facing the people, as you mentioned a little bit, but also like just in general, dealing with just the system. If you can share that, because if someone is going through this, your experience will definitely get them to get by, to know that
Yeah.
there is, first of all, you never give up. Second of all, you can make it happen, and it's just a matter of time, as long as you do what it takes to make it there. And you did. I mean, today you look at you. I mean, you're changing lives through your program, and you're using some of the stuff that you learned, through your own personal experiences. So, what are
Yeah.
some of the challenges and or the struggles that you had, and whether they affected your confidence, identity, self-image, whatever that is? Let's share
Yeah.
that with our audience.
Yeah. So if I focus on, the negative stuff that affected me, for a second here, you know, in kindergarten was the first time I learned that I was different and I couldn't read like everybody else. And, I was trying to spell my name, Michael, and my teacher was getting frustrated because I couldn't spell Michael. And this was, I started to sense her frustrations, and then I started paying attention to the other kids, and I noticed they had all already spelt their name. It was easy for them, and I just couldn't get it. And so, out of frustration, she said, "Hey, let's try Mike." And at that day, I went from being Michael to Mike because I could spell Mike. It was much easier for me, and that was later in later years. Probably about 48 years old, I was able to go back to that moment and reframe it with compassion, love, and forgiveness for the teachers, for the kids who were snickering, and for myself for not understanding. And I kind of freed myself from that moment haunting me anymore. Because what happens to us, and it took me a long time to learn this, um, but when I kind of had a spiritual awakening at about 45 years old, and I turned all of my focus from the outside world trying to find solutions and turned it inward. And when I did, about 3 years later, I basically went back to that moment and reframed it, because every day after that, whenever I would get into a stressful situation, the noise in my head would tell me I'm stupid, I'm dumb, I'm not as smart as them, you're going to fail, and it was just on a reel. And that endless reel what is what was torturing me. The ability to read was one thing. It's hard because you can't do this or you can't do that, but that's not torture. That's just not being able to do something. I can't bench press 250 pounds right now. That doesn't cause me any pain. It's when we start to turn it to mental pain that I can't do what everybody else can do, and I'm comparing myself to others. That's when it becomes pain. It becomes torment. And the subconscious mind's number one job is to protect us. And so when you have a fearful experience at a very young age, the subconscious mind is going to hold on to that and try to protect it from happening again. And so that's where the voices are coming from, right? It came from that initial day. And so it was on a reel continuously all the way through my childhood, long after I learned how to read, because learning how to read doesn't go back and rewrite that program. And so for me, just kind of understanding that whole dynamic, it wasn't that I couldn't read. It was the endless voices in my head torturing me all day long. And when I tried something new, you're going to fail. They're going to figure you out. When I get on the basketball court and I could play with college athletes in junior high, and get on the court as a high school basketball player, and the noises would show up on the basketball court. Um, I, I would just be a shell of myself, and then all of a sudden the voices would get even louder because it was proof that what was going on in my head was now affecting me in sports. Um, and it just continued on and on and on. It continued on in boxing. It continued on in my business world. When I did learn how to read, it did give me a little bit more confidence that I wasn't just terrified in certain situations, but um, it just the noise in my head just never turned off, and I think that's what most people deal with. I think it's not whether or not you're a good reader or a bad reader. It's the voices in our head that get created that really torture us.
Well, Mike, thank you for sharing that because what you're referring to here, I mean, it's really so much the impact, right? So yes, you have this condition and but that's something you can deal with too. I love what you said. I can't bench press 250 pounds. I mean, not most of us can, right? So it's not a big
Right.
deal. But can we work towards it? Of course, but
Yeah.
it's not a self-image thing or a confidence thing. It's just a matter of like I can do this in time. But the damage is done through the people and the I guess the constant, you know, experience of you, you know, feeling that from others, and it impacts it literally. It's a mental piece more than a physical piece, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I love what you said about the noises. Like you know, it created this subconscious, you know, I guess ideology that I'm not good, I can't do anything, or I can't,
Mhm.
if I do this, I might not be able to perform or do this equally to the others because now you've almost became comfortable with the idea. Well, not comfortable, but you had this condition or conditional idea of this is me. I can't do like the others kids do, and that's actually something that many people that may have experienced any type of similar situation. By the way, this is you're talking about one particular thing. I mean, some people can, they're not as good as math and they can
Yeah.
really show up in a very and people are like, oh, I'm like, how could you not figure out a couple of math equations? Not everybody has the same capabilities and capacities to
Absolutely.
understand,
Yeah.
comprehend, and even just break things down in the mind. I mean, everybody's different, right? Especially in your case, you said this is inherited, which means it's something that your body's got to have to adjust to, and so, but people don't understand that, and I think that's the problem. People judge, and I think we have to do more work, folks. If you're watching or listening, if you're in the education system, I think we have to do a lot more work to really um, get people to understand the limitations that are available, and not everybody is equal to everybody, and we shouldn't have
Yeah.
always to identify to a certain norm because that's what it is.
Yeah.
Because and again, if that is the case, let's say we have these, like the IEP, classes or system or the programs, right? They're designed for these things. So what they do, so the system kind of helps people that are identified with some limitations
Hmm.
to have them, in a better place so they can actually get their own pace until they get to the comfort, level. And now they just mix in with the crowd. You get to college, I mean, there's not much they can do, but that's the thing. It's that first, I guess, 7 years or 8 years of education from, I guess I would say, from elementary through high school, 12 years of suffering sometimes if this is continuous and you have to deal with it. And it's very difficult, right? now
Yeah.
now I love what you said is that you know it took a minute, and but you faced it. But the concept of you kind of being in peace with it, forgiving those people that actually were kind of
Hmm.
not very nice,
They
just
didn't
to be a,
understand. Yeah.
yeah. Well, wait, I think that's a message to people, right? Just because somebody's different, we cannot look down on them or just look at them as they're, weird. They're not weird. They're just different. You used the
Yeah.
word a minute ago. That's it. And I think that's the problem. This is actually very common also in the autism work, right? People, judge people because of something that's how they are, right? You can't do anything about it. And some okay, because I have this rule, this is how it's supposed to look, and then everything else that doesn't look like it, I have to be like against, or I have to, ridicule and stuff. No, it doesn't work that way, right? So again, I think we have to be more aware as folks that this world is different, has a lot of people. We're all different in our own capacities, doesn't matter what culture, religion, walk of life, socioeconomics, health wise. I mean, we have all kinds of things, and we have to accept people and respect people for who they are and how they are at early age. So I think we need to do more. And so
Yeah.
again, it's a message to the people that are out there that can make a difference and maybe change some regulations and things like that, and be very hard on the people that are like um, messing up with children, for example, or kids that are having limited abilities and things like that. I think
Well,
that's just a granted thing. But you being literally taking the higher road later on and forgiving. I mean, forgiving is a big place to
it's it's
to
it's the only way to move past it. That's how we are physically designed. Because if the opposite of love is fear, and are chemically we are made that way, and so the subconscious mind's number one job is to protect us. And if we don't forgive that teacher and those other kids, the subconscious mind is going to continue to hold on to it. And those thoughts will continue to come because it's trying to protect you from that happening again. So forgiveness and compassion is the way forward for to rewrite the program. It's not just like woo woo, I gotta love everybody silliness. It's actually chemically and structurally how the subconscious mind works to reprogram it to free it. And I'll tell you another quick thing because you talked a lot on kids, and so I've got a hereditary thing, and I have passed it on to two of my six kids. And
wow.
one of the first one that went through it, he had a rough time. I wasn't really able to help him, but the we got him help through MTSU here in Middle Tennessee. They diagnosed him officially, and then we sent him to a school named Jubilee, and they know how to teach him. So by the time he was in high school, he was taking advanced honors classes. He had to work his butt off for about 6 years, really hard. But he still was attached with some of the negative stuff that I was talking about, and it still sits in him because he hasn't been able to figure that out. But I've got an 11-year-old boy who his is even worse than my other son's and worse than what mine was. And I've learned all these tools now and healed myself from the past. So the voices in my head that say I was stupid, they're gone. Like I have done over 50 core beliefs on this topic and they're gone now. Like I don't have negative thoughts that tell me I'm dumb anymore. I actually created a writing program where anybody could learn how to do this and track yours down to the source and make whatever noises are going on in your head because everybody's different, track them down to the source and make them go away. But one of the key points that I wanted to say here is that my son he's 11 and he's going through the same stuff, and we're able to use an understanding that I have now of identities and then some manual tools to calm his system down, because here's what happens to him now. So he goes to school and he'll have random moments where he has to read, or the teacher will skip him and the kid is making a joke because, oh, he got skipped, and then Tuck gets upset. And so we talked through this, and what he'll do now, because he would just put his head down and cry. So now he will put his hand up, ask to be excused, go to the bathroom, and he'll start box breathing and he'll calm his system down, because when your system's in full threat mode, there's no rational thought going to happen. So he spends about 2 to 5 minutes getting himself calm. And once he knows that he's calm, he just simply says out loud, I'm not a good reader or a bad reader. I just read. And what he's doing is he's removing the threat of being a good reader or a bad reader, because his identity is not being threatened, right? That's what was happening to me. My identity was being threatened as a smart kid when I was learning how to read. He now knows how to take that away from him. So he comes back and sits down after 10 minutes in the bathroom of calming himself down with breath work, removing the identity to being a good reader. And then he comes back in and just sits down and he's just as happy and ready to go back to work. And he's completely reset himself and he's not carrying any of that luggage of trying to protect himself from something that doesn't need to be protected. And it's absolutely beautiful. And I'm 100% confident that if I could teach my son this, we could be teaching all of these emotional skills to young kids all around the country.
Well, thank you for sharing that because That is huge. I mean, Bucks breathing is an important thing is mental health, and when you have, you start having a little bit of an anxiety and you getting excited, because to your point,
Yeah.
you're right. If the adrenaline is kicking, you're blocked, so you can't think, and that's gonna just generate a reaction. Could be ugly, could be just crying, could be all kind of that, which will make it worse. But really, he's taught now to deal with the situation differently, and he's able to actually tackle it on time, and he's already absorbed the idea. I just read whatever my reading is. That's what my reading is, and that's
Exactly.
and by the way, and that's actually a fact. By the way, just so you know, I didn't have the same condition, but I was bullied when I was a kid for
Yeah.
my size because I was tiny. So people just, and because I didn't skip, but my so the school system where I was different. So I kind of was in a class where there were kids that were bigger and older than me, right? And
Yeah.
so maybe they were. So I went up from private to regular school. So in private you get to start early. In government schools you actually have to be at a certain age, right? So
Yeah.
that gap 2 or 3 years makes a big difference. So now here I am in a class where a bunch of kids that are much older than me, and so and I was a little skinny, little short dude, and you know what? I was just the punchback. Everybody comes in, pushes you, slaps you, and all this stuff. For a minute, that was my life, in school. Now it didn't, that's a different angle, but it's the same concept.
Yeah,
You
all
have
the
to deal
same
with that,
thing. Yeah.
and you have
Leaves it.
to
Yeah.
yeah, and like and they call you stuff. I mean, they used to call me chickpea. that was a nickname for me for a minute, right? Because there was this little, I think it was some book or something that had the story about it, so that became my nickname. And so here comes chickpea. That's how tiny I was, right? I'm 5'8" now, but but then I was like this tiny dude, and that's what my I guess middle school days were. And but you're right, like it's a matter of facing it,
Hmm.
understanding it, and don't even react to it. Like it becomes, whatever. I am who I am. I can't change, my size at this point. So what I did, I mean, to your point, I kind of learned how to deal with it. I went to martial arts. My parents supported that. I
Yeah.
developed my discipline. I built up myself. I became bigger, stronger, and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
You
Now
learned how to
nobody messes
read.
with. Yeah, I know. No, exactly. Nobody messes with me anymore, right? So
Yeah.
and by the way, this could be similar, in a lot of different angles for a lot of people watching and
Hmm.
listening. And so and then it's a said that our world is that's the nature of our world. Like, some people they just look at what's different and they piggyback on that shit, and and they get
Yeah.
excited about it, and somewhere it gives them a high. And that's a problem. We shouldn't be doing that. We shouldn't. I hate when I see people like pushing people around, or bullying them, or
Yeah.
looking down at them, because it just annoys the hell out of me. Like, why? They didn't
Yeah.
choose. Some people, they don't choose how they are, who they are, where they are, right?
Yeah.
And but we make these extra, and we see this in movies, especially like high school movies, and even in the workplace you see this stuff. You
Yeah.
get people who have a little bit of a position and whatever, and they just think that they own the world. Or some people have money and they look at you like, you're a very low grade human. What the hell? you know Everybody is equal, as humans. And that's just my look at, life, right? We all sleep, we all poop, we all eat, we all kind of bleed the same color, and that's the end of it. And we all die and we get in a box. So at the end of the day, that's human. So,
Yeah.
but people sometimes they have this I am bigger, I am better, I am this, I am that. I think from this particular show, I mean, my message really is, folks, we need to start appreciating other people. We should be not making fun of others, because here's the thing. You in your case, you said your kids have this inherited dyslexia, right? But everybody sometimes, like, I could make fun of somebody, and maybe I have my kids, or I have somebody, or me, you know I can get a disability or some other condition later on. And now guess what? I used to the karma is that we call it karma as a bitch,
Yeah.
right? Shit can happen to any one of us, and then you go. So don't make fun of people, folks. And you know what? You should appreciate. You should support people who are having difficulty, regardless. Whether you're their friends or not, and or at least just leave them alone. If you can't help them,
Well,
leave them alone.
yeah, man, I would argue that if you're doing that to someone, two things are happening. But when you're being judgmental or mean towards somebody, you're causing physical pain to yourself. And science call it a mirror receptors, but I think it's because we're all connected and we all are truly one. But however you want to look at it, through science or through a spiritual perspective, when you are being rude or disrespectful to somebody, you are literally causing yourself pain. And some people don't realize it, but when they're doing that, it's a reflection of their shadow parts. It's the pain. That's how they were treated, right? And if you as somebody who's been bullied, you learn how to fight, you learn how to protect yourself. But at the end of the day, the only way to make the noise in the head stop is to forgive all of them,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And that's the message that I would say to people is when somebody is doing that, yes, we got to call it out. We got to stand up. We can't just let those things happen. But to also, because if somebody was to bully me today, or somebody was to be mean to me in any kind of a way, I would be able to smile through all of it because I would immediately forgive them. And as soon as I forgive them, I've not accepted any of the thing that they're trying to give me. And as a young kid, they don't know how to process that information and be able to do it that well. But if I'm if somebody is trying to give me a gift and I don't accept it, it remains their gift. And that's what folks are trying to do when they're being a bully and they're pushing that stuff onto somebody. And I think we just need to teach our kids, the ones who are being bullied, the ones who are being, you know, made to feel like they're less than or ugly or stupid or whatever. We need to teach them how to forgive the people that are doing this, remove any identities like I was talking about with my son, that I'm not, I'm not a little kid or a big kid. I'm just a kid. And just be in a situation to where their words can't touch us. Right. And then eventually, because the people who are causing the pain, they're in pain. Right. The bullies are in pain, and they're just passing that pain on to somebody else. That's all they know. So when we start to take it from a perspective of teaching kids how to be unaffected by a bully, it nullifies a bully, right? So that's just my perspective on it. There's a way to teach these kids, the next generation, how to be so emotionally intelligent that somebody's words can't touch them. And it is some work, but removing identities, learning how to forgive, these are things that I've been teaching an 8-year-old all the way through 11. And now, he's able to remove all these things. Like he was playing soccer for a while because he's in a school from kindergarten to 12. And he loved playing soccer. And then all of a sudden he started coming home and he was miserable. He was practicing every day and he was miserable. And I was like, well, what happened here, Duck? He said, well, the big kids do this. And I said, well, weren't they doing the same thing, 3 weeks ago when you were loving it? Yeah, but, now it's, and all he did was add, he wanted to be a good soccer player to his identity. We walked through it. Now, all of a sudden, he's able to go right back to school, play soccer with the big kids who are doing the same stuff they were doing yesterday, and it doesn't bother him. And so when we learn how to process that and just simply remove identities, we don't have anything to be attacked. When I sit down with a new client, one of the first things I ask them when I get to week 6 of my program, and I'll ask them what their job is. And you're a really good podcast host, so I'm just going to mess with you, but just know that I'm messing with you. The first thing I'll say to them is, "You are the shittiest podcast host I've ever seen," and you'll have a physical 90% of the people I say that to, they have a physical response in their gut, right? And you know that I'm joking, but the physical response is your subconscious mind's attempt to protect you. But if I tell you right now, Hurricane, you are the shittiest attorney I have ever met. I hope you're not an attorney, by the way, but there's no response to that, right? Because you're not an attorney, you don't identify with it. And if we can learn how to just remove all these identities that we start attaching to ourselves from a very early age, there's nothing to attack. There's nothing to protect. And we can live a much freer life where somebody could say something and it just doesn't even touch us, because it's like calling us a shitty attorney, because we don't care. We only care if we attach something to our identity, and then the subconscious mind now is going to fight fiercely to protect it as if it was our life. And those simple things can be taught to kids, and it's so liberating and so free. And it's honestly, it's super simple.
Mike. See, it's both. Here's the thing. It's an interesting concept you said there. By the way, I love what you're about and what you shared. I mean, the idea of when someone is taking action and being bullying, as a human and taking it on others, right? You're right, day in pain. I mean, it's just a reflection of who they are and what they've
Yes.
experienced, and it's really just their way of dealing with their own, I guess, problems, right?
Yeah.
And that's actually a fact, from psychology, right? So it's not even, anybody that is taking it on somebody else is probably having some, either they're hearing stuff, they're being taught, that kind of behavior, or they're just kind of reacting because they are being subjected to something, and that's the way for them to get that energy out, right? And
Yep.
so we that's a problem. But I love what you said, and the idea is that you know what you like the detachment, pure detachment for identity from, like, that. I love what you said. Yes, I am a podcaster, I am a radio host, and by the way, I love what you that example specifically because this is true. I mean, not everybody likes my show, and I don't care.
Yeah,
you know
then that's great.
you know
You can
you
have
you
fun. Yeah.
yeah, I listen. It is a show that has a mission, and for people that want to absorb it, some people will get it,
Yeah.
some people will not get it. My format is different. I don't care how people see it, except the right people are gonna understand it. They're gonna see it for what it is, and they're gonna take
Yeah.
what it's meant to be. But really, I don't like people. You want to say something, go for it. I don't care. It's not me.
Yeah.
Whatever you say, it's not me. See, I'm already
Yeah.
in a pure world of like whatever. Your world and my world is completely. You're not getting into this. This is like well
Yeah.
protected.
You're not
So
accepting their gift.
yeah, yeah. You can. Your gifts are just. They well, actually, I have this joke, right? I say to people, openly, listen, I love you, man, as much as you love me and more. So if you analyze, actually, so some people, they don't even get this one. It's very simple. Your level of love, that includes hate. So as much as you hate me, you can get that back. As much as you love me, you can get that back. I don't hate
Yeah.
anyone. I just love everyone at that rate.
Yeah.
Which means if you don't like me, I just don't even care. And so, but that's the thing. Like, so it's a state of mind, right? You gotta get and elevate. And you're right. For the kids, it's very difficult because they haven't evolved yet, right?
Yeah. They haven't
It's easy
processed
for
that.
you and I to have this conversation, but
Yeah.
for someone who's 5 years old, even up to, I think we develop our front lobe until like 25 or something, and that's when
Yeah.
our identity is even like in the 30s, right? Psychologically speaking. But here's the thing, right? If the parents that are listening to watching, I think if we can make this a rule, for parenthood, right, and we can help, and teach our kids about that there are people that are different. There are people that are they're not going to be the same. Not everybody is equal. Everybody, and by the way, I've seen this in real life, and you probably have seen it, and everyone is watching, listening, have seen it somehow, experience it. A lot of these people sometimes that are like the hot guys that do this, that do that, they want on the nose. Maybe sometimes they're not the most successful people in life. And by
Mhm.
the way, it's a sad statement, but it's a fact, right? We've seen these experiences or examples in life because that's the thing. Like, nothing is eternal, right? In this world, nothing is really what it means. Everybody can evolve from whatever they are. So no matter what situation you're in, the life, this I guess, time that we spend in this world is limited, and we're gonna evolve at a point or another, regardless, because life is gonna teach us some lessons, whether we like it or not. So if we bully, you're gonna find someone that's gonna bully, and there's some sort of a justice, that we refer to as karma, whatever other words that we can use out there. It is real and it happens. And so if we learn to teach people love and our kids, that listen, if you see someone that needs help, help them. I mean, I think we're losing some of these traditions, like even simple things, like you see someone who is an elderly person, for example, and people make fun of them when they push them. Oh, look at this old guy or this. Dude, that old guy was a doctor, was a surgeon, was a warrior, was this, was that. You don't. They had a full life of life of life, right?
Yeah.
Yet they come to a point and you just judge them, or again, for kids, they judge people because of whatever. It could be just something, a mark on their face and something in their hand, and they're like, oh, look at that. What is that? I think if we teach our kids, in general, that listen, you see something that is different, That's what it is. It's different. Let's not make
Yeah.
that. Let's not harp on it. You're too. I mean, everybody's different. So you think you're hot? You're the shit? No, you're not. No one
Yeah.
is. Okay. So whatever it is, we all are. Humans, and humans are not. The most perfect creation, right? I mean, we are
Yeah.
perfect creation in terms of
But we're
the.
perfectly imperfect, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
everybody
Exactly.
is imperfect. Like the what do they say that in the East they have those vases that they break and they put them back together with
Yes.
gold glue,
Japan.
and then
Yeah.
they meditate on the imperfections of it. And that's how we all are. We are these amazing creatures, and we're one of 8 billion creatures that is walking, and all individuals, but we're all flawed, and we all have our own demons and imperfections, and they should be celebrated.
Listen, we have to embrace that. Actually, that's what makes us beautiful. I think as a creature is that we're different. There's only one you. There's only one me.
Yeah,
And there's only one of the 8 billions that are on this planet today, and that's a beautiful thing. Yeah, we might have lookalikes and maybe have some similar things, whatever. But there's only one person of
yeah,
you if you're watching or listening, and everybody else is beautiful in their own way. And we should just look at that. It's like the cup full versus empty, half full rather than half empty. Yeah, look at people, see the beauty in everything, as opposed
yeah,
to seeing, oh, like some people. It's amazing. Like there was I've seen like a reel or something. It comes up a few every now and then. I see something like that, where it's supposedly a class of Albert Einstein. He was doing this equation, and at the last one he made a mistake, and they started pointing and laughing at that last mistake, and he did it on purpose. And then he turned and he says to them, uh, when I did 9 good equations, nobody said anything, right? Nobody applauded anything. But you just picked on the little guy, the last one, that I made a mistake, knowing that I'm not the one that's going to make that kind of mistake in the first place.
yeah,
Yet you still made that because it turned you on. It's like it was a cool thing, right? But that's the thing. People look at that stuff like that's the really, like, you can build a beautiful place, and they go, well, why is this color this way? Why did you put
yeah,
this thing here? Or you can decorate the place and so on. By the way, opinions are a dime a dozen, folks. I mean, it's literally everybody has one, right? And I'm not gonna go on the other expression that we use, back home, right? But the fact is, everybody can design stuff. If we say, like, let's if I give this show right now to anyone else, you will have your own way of doing it. It's
yeah,
never going to be the same. That's the thing. Like, your way, my way, it doesn't matter. It's just a different way.
yeah,
And we go to school. They teach us a certain format of things, but even that format, we have different ways of looking at it, right?
yeah.
Different ways of
Everybody's going to
adapting.
perceive it differently. Yeah.
Exactly. So Mike, there's a thing here. You kind of mentioned something about depression earlier.
Hmm.
How did you deal with that? I mean, that's a pretty strong element in life, and it can really hit you hard.
Yeah, I did what a lot of folks of my generation did. You rub dirt on it, get back in the game. You don't talk about it. It's just one of those things that's not spoken about. And one of the things that I thought was going to make it better as I was getting older, I realized that, I had social anxiety and I didn't want to be around anybody. And when I was alone, I was miserable. Like, so I wasn't really happy anywhere. And I always thought that when I achieved the next thing, that would be the thing that would make me happy. All right. So get married, find the right woman, I found her, she's my best friend. It was great, but the noise came back. We have all these kids, they're healthy. The noise comes back. We have I find a job to where my wife can quit work. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have made it. Like, yes, it's great because our kids are banging. I'm able to have some pride in what I've done, but at the end of the day, the voices and all of it came back, and it was like I started to realize that, man, okay, maybe I need to make more money. I need to do this or that, and then I move jobs and make even more money. And now I'm 45 years old and I'm making more money than I ever thought I was going to make, especially with all the noise in my head telling me I wasn't smart. Um, and and I realized that the only thing left was retirement and death. And there wasn't anything else out in front of me to achieve. And I turned all that inward, and I started trying meditation. I was consuming 10 to 15 books a month on Audible. Still not the best reader, but all that information was just flowing through me. And really what I realized is depression is coming from the past and anxiety is coming from the future. And it's when our brain is time traveling. But if we could just sit in the present moment right here and right now, there isn't a problem in the world that we can find, right? It is always beautiful and peaceful right here in the present moment. But it's our mind when it's time traveling is where the pain is. And the reason why it's typically traveling backwards is because there's old negative core beliefs that were written. And those, it's a program, and so we have this masterful body that is far more intelligent than we can imagine. Like our heart's beating all day long and we don't have to do anything to keep it beating. We breathe all day long. We don't have to breathe. We have, I think it's like 2 billion bacteria in our stomach that are not human, that without them, we wouldn't be able to digest our food. They break it down to the points where it breaks it down and distributes it to our body. But without that bacteria, we couldn't do it. Like, how the hell is that possible, right? So we got this amazing thing and it's running on autopilot. And science has basically proven now that we run 95% of our days on autopilot. We learn how to drive and then we just drive. We learn how to walk and then we just walk. We don't have to think about it. We learn how to talk when we're 2 years old. And once we learn how to master the language by 3 or 4 or 5 years old, then, then we don't have to think about it no more. And it's all being done on autopilot. And so that voice that's coming from us in the past, it's coming from that same thing, right? It's a subconscious program, and that program is extremely powerful, right? It is a million times more powerful than the conscious mind. It's why when people say, "Hey, I'm gonna set a New Year's resolution, I'm gonna start working out," and then nobody makes it to February, right? Nobody makes it to February because this we're swimming upstream against a program that is extremely powerful, right? What I learned how to do to deal with my depression was I understood through all the books, through the training, through going to see a guy named Chris Hancock, but I broke down and figured out exactly how the subconscious mind works, how to program it, how to reprogram it, how it was programmed in the first place, the operating system of it, like how it physically works. Like the subconscious mind has no concept of time. It's literally a computer. So everything that happened in the past is still happening now, right? And so there is only ever now, right? This is what all the mystics and the Buddhists are all talking about. There is only ever the present moment, and that's how our subconscious mind works. Another beautiful thing about the subconscious mind, it has no concept of a real or an imagined thing. Like my brain is going to process me imagining talking to you the same way it is me talking to you, right? So it's all, once you start to understand some of these things, you realize, wait a minute, I can go back in time because it's right now, always right now to my subconscious mind with my imagination, because it doesn't know if it's real or imagined. I can go back to 5 years old, reframe that entire situation with my kindergarten teacher with love, compassion, and forgiveness. And as far as my memory is concerned, it has changed. I have relived it and reprogrammed that subconscious thing. And now those voices go away, right? So depression, that's where it comes from. And I learned this from a brilliant guy here in Middle Tennessee, Chris Hancock. And he's amazing. Was it therapy outside the box? He started traditional therapy, had a whole dark night of the soul thing, and now he's unbelievable because he understands everything about traditional therapy, but he's gone into another world where he understands all how the subconscious mind works. And so basically for 5 years, I've gone to him every other week. And in the middle of that process, I created my own. It's a writing process that anybody can do. I spent close to $25,000 going to see Chris, and I created a program that somebody could take my program and learn how to do this in the 10-week process, and you could do it for the rest of your life for free. All right. You don't have to go back and, keep somebody on that drip as a thing. Like once you learn it, It's a writing exercise. We teach you how to track it back to its source and make this stuff go away. So, depression is a powerful thing, and that's where most of the pain comes from. I think that's even the source of anxiety, because the subconscious mind is trying to protect you from that thing that happened in the past by searching into the future. So now you're getting confused with which one is anxiety and depression, because it ends up in both places and we're not in the present moment. So
You know,
yeah,
Mike, thank you for sharing that. It's funny because you said something. You said I read a lot of books, but I'm not a good reader still. But here's the thing. Like, I want to ask this question to audiences watching right now. What is a good reader? Like
yeah, it's
like
a great point. Like being able
what
to
is the
digest,
norm?
yeah,
Yeah.
being able to comprehend what you're reading, reading comprehension, and that's what I would consider it. I can't. So I'm the COO of Jarrett Companies. We do $100 million a year, and we're a contractor. So we had every job we get a contract. I suck at reading contracts because I can't comprehend the information. I got to read the same paragraph 5 times to understand what's being said, especially in contract language, because it's difficult
Oh,
and challenging. So
legalese.
yeah, but I have removed any identity that I have with being a good reader or a bad reader. So I don't really care. Like, it's easy for me to say, like, but what I've done is I've surrounded myself with people who have a skill set
Okay.
that I don't, right?
Yeah.
So I just, navigating the world is easy once you take ownership of your strengths and your weaknesses.
But Mike, right? But the question remains for people, right? Like, we're always comparing like a good reader, but what is define a good reader? What is a good reader? Like someone who can read fast, someone can comprehend faster. It doesn't matter. I can read my pace, you read your pace.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna read one day the same paragraph. So who cares? I just wasted the one day to get something in my mind, and it's different from you. That's the problem. Like, we have these we almost set up these rules that are almost like became the law, but yet there is nothing about law change every time.
Yeah, yeah,
Laws,
they do.
are meant to be broken, as they say, right? They
In the
look, if we
business
look at the
world,
laws.
yeah, in the business world, it all gets quantified, right? So
That's
like,
right.
if I was let's just say I was an entry level at my office, and there's no way I'm going to get the contract reviewer's job in my office, right? We have somebody who just reviews contracts. I'm not going to get that job. They're going to fire me after 2 months of doing that job because I'm slow and I'm not good. So it's okay to not be a good reader, right? But if I in my spare time, yeah, I could be slow and continue to read and whatever, and there's no judgment. But I think if we're able to say, yes, I'm really good at this, and I'm not so good at this, but I got to be able to do both of these things. Well, my dad wasn't the best role model, but he gave me one piece of advice. Probably besides love everybody, the only other thing he told me is, Mike, you don't have to be a mechanic to get your car fixed. You hire a mechanic. You don't have to be an attorney. You can hire an attorney. And it gave me a perspective that there wasn't anything I couldn't do, because I just
Have
needed to
other
find.
people that can do
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
there was
Everybody's got a strength. If we all come together, like, shit's going to get done, right? And so I, 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 I don't see any of these things, but we should be able to turn inward. And I think this is so. I got a book out, and it's coming out in October, and the title of it is "One Brave Breath: The Owner's Manual for Being Human." All right, because we've never received an owner's manual on how we work. And I feel like if everybody understood some of the concepts that we're talking about here today, it would just be easier to navigate life. And the chapter one, the starting place for everyone is just having the awareness of what is going on, being able to turn your focus inward and just look at what's going on in your mind. Don't do anything, don't try to fix anything, but just pay attention, because most of us avoid it. When we start to hear something going on, we go, oh, where's my phone? Oh, give me some food. Oh, no, I ain't doing that right now. Where's the TV? I'm going to turn the TV on. Like, we just run from whatever's going on in our head, and we don't pay attention. But once we stop and we have that awareness, all right, man, oh man, I can't get my mind to keep telling me that, I'm going to get fired. I got this new job and I'm not good enough to do it. Or I'm trying to start a business and I'm going to fail, or whatever it is that is going on in our head. Most of us ignore it and we push it down, but that's the gold, because you can't fix anything if you're not taking ownership of it and you're aware of it. We're running from it. And if we just stop, take 100% ownership of, this is what's happening inside of me, don't run from it. And it's hard because it's a little scary, But that one act of paying attention, turning your focus inward, and just being aware of what is happening can change your entire life.
Oh, Mike, thank you so much for sharing. I mean, these are powerful, concepts that you're sharing, and it's amazing. You're not a psychiatrist. This is not your expertise, but yet through your work, through your search for advancing your own self and changing, and coping with life, and turning, things to your way, and really, understanding how you can operate. I love that, the concept of having a manual. By the way, I think we would probably need a manual for each of us because we all are different. We like all
Yeah,
different maids, But here's the thing: like, it's funny because psychiatry, and psychology is a big world, right?
yeah,
And they have books and books and books and experts, millions of experts, from the dawn of time, right? We have these folks. And they still cannot figure out the human condition. I mean, the human condition is very complex, right? They understand certain things, but there's always something new that, we're still kind of, even within the psychology world, you have divide, right? Between folks that agree to one thing and not agree or disagree to the same thing. Also, the idea that we put a lot of labels on everything, right? I mean, again,
yeah.
what is
That's part of the
what is
problem. Yeah,
what is a smart person? Okay, so do they have to have 160 IQ to make them a smart person? Not necessarily. That's just somebody that decided that's what the spectrum is, and we go in from, I don't know, 50 to 160. I forgot, what the lower
yeah, yeah.
angle on. But who cares, right? So you're smart. What does that mean? I mean, am I going to be able to send a rocket to Mars? No. you know,
But
am I going to be able
that's
to
not
tie
your
my shoes?
passion, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
If
it's
it's my
not your
passion, that's fine.
passion.
Yeah, correct. But we do what we love, right? I
Yeah,
like to talk. I'm doing a talk show, so cool. I
yeah.
mean, I'm in my place, right? But
And you're
here's the
really
thing, like,
good at it.
no, thank you, man. I listen. I'm not good. I'm just me. That's the other thing. Like, people
But
say,
that's
like,
what
you
happens
know,
when you're
w-
authentic. The good comes out.
again, but even good is a label, right? You say good,
Yeah,
someone says, like, oh, you suck, right? Okay, I suck to you. Like, it's funny, like, I am somebody to somebody and too many, but I am nobody to many. So who
yeah,
cares? My world is those bodies that actually I'm somebody to them, right? And the
yeah.
vice versa to everyone. It's how, again, I love what you say when you go inwards, right? And you start understanding you and how you choose. Like, this is becoming a topic of discussion a couple of days now, choosing how to show up to the world and how to deal with the world and how to accept things. You have a level of power that is beyond the average person at that point, because you understand it. I love what you said, the idea of subconscious. I mean, that is another topic that the more we understand subconsciousness, the more we understand how we operate.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like, we live today, to your right, subconsciously, you can review your past in a second. You can literally, like, what if I did this? And we have this debate all the time. Like, what if I did this? What if I did that? What if I should have
Mhm.
done this? I should have done that. But if the minute you start talking about it, you start seeing solutions already, and you start feeling better about certain things.
Yeah.
you know. And that's the thing, to your point. You said anxiety, people getting anxious. Well, because they have a bad experience now, they're worried about what's going to happen. Yes, you
Mhm.
have a little bit of understanding of bad things that can happen if you do certain things. Okay, I get it. But tomorrow's not, guaranteed. No one can guarantee tomorrow. We
Yeah.
don't guarantee the next hour. So why do we drive ourselves nuts? To your point, let's enjoy the moment. Let's be, full of understanding how all of us can interact. I love the concept, again, with your book. That's going to be a powerful thing. So there was some noise there for a second there. So Mike, let's talk about, the healing process.
Yeah.
So you really, I think, you've drawn the map of how to deal with things and how to make it easy. But the healing process, is there a curve to it? Is there? I'm
Absolutely,
sure that.
there
Yeah.
is. Absolutely, there is. I've worked with folks. So the it- to me there's four major things in healing, right? The first one is going to be the identity stuff we talked about, like with my son. I'm not a good soccer player or a bad soccer player. I just, when you remove identities, now that's freeing you, like, and it's liberating. When I first did it with politics and being a Titans football fan, I realized my life changed. Just those two small things, my life changed drastically. The positivity in my life just increased. um, Forgiveness of ourselves and others. Forgiving others is typically pretty easy, but forgiving ourselves is really hard. And when we start to practice through little things, somebody cuts you off in traffic, and I like to get people to practice there. Um, somebody cuts you off in traffic, you come up with something immediately that you make up. Like, hey, that guy, his kid is sick. He's trying to get home, and I hope he makes it home safe and his kid is okay. Like, even though it's a made up story, but what I just did is I kept myself in a place where I'm not casting any judgment. I'm not getting any anger. So I maintain my peace when somebody cuts me off, and I'm unaffected by it. And then the last major part, well, not the last, but the third one is rewriting the core beliefs, tracking stuff down to its source and rewriting those things, reframing them with compassion, love, and forgiveness, and it frees us, right? So now there's another healing, and that is one of the most powerful things we can do, and most people have no idea it's possible. And I didn't create this, right? The Buddhists have been doing this for 2,000 years, well documented. It's just a wide range of different ways everybody did it. I did come up with my own writing exercise that's unique, but there's EDMR when people they mess with your eyes and open up your subconscious mind that way. And then there's what my program is 10 weeks. The first 3 weeks are manual exercises that it's like the box breathing, gratitude, learning to train your mind every time you have a negative thought to replace it with a positive one, which keeps your chemicals in oxytocin versus cortisol. So like the first 3 weeks is just like a whole manual shift. And then you get into the healing stuff, which is to your question. I get through the identities, the forgiveness, and core beliefs. And I had that put one more in there, and it's living authentically. Because if we don't live an authentic life, we could heal everything. We could bring ourselves into the present moment, and we are still going to be miserable. So living an authentic life, most people don't even understand what that means, but it's basically being honest in all facets of our life to ourselves, not to anybody else. It's about being honest with ourselves and what we truly want, not living a life for somebody else. So there's got to be somebody out there that's staying in a marriage for their kids. They are miserable right now. There's moms that their kids go off after school and they live their own life, and then they're miserable because they've been living their whole lives for them and they don't even know what they like anymore. They're a mom that identifies as being a mom, but their kids are gone. Like, what do I do with myself now? And they're miserable and they don't know why. And I think it's because we're not living authentically. We don't even know how to ask the question sometimes of what we actually want, or we know what we want and we're too scared to say it out loud because somebody's going to judge us. You don't live that way. I spend all this money for you to go to college and you're going to run off and be an actor like Will Smith. That's literally what happened to Will Smith. Like, he went through this whole deal where his parents were basically about to disown him because he's a brilliant math guy, and his parents spent all this money, and he says, to heck with all that, I'm going to go be an actor. But he followed his authentic path, and then look what happened. And I think that's what people, a major component of life that I think some people miss is truly just being authentic and not allowing the negativity of others to influence us.
Well, thank you, Mike. And yeah, I was going to ask you like about the love, being you program, and you kind of broke it down already to me. So really, it's a brilliant program. And by the way, I love that, as you said. First of all, these are concepts that exist, and you just kind of put them on a different
Yeah.
way, different light, different format. But the concept of switching and all these steps, I think if each and every one of us watching and listening right now, apply some of these things easily, right? And by the way, if we're not sure how to do it, I mean, obviously we have this show, and this is a resource, and Mike is available. His program is available. We'd like for people. Sometimes we don't know how to do this ourselves, right? And we need this. Like you did. You went to see a guy who was able to guide you and help you to get
Absolutely.
to the point where you are. And now you're invincible. Nothing can stop you. Nothing can phase you. I mean, really, that's what it is, right? You get
That's
to the
how I
point that,
feel. Yeah.
dude, yeah, you're Superman for real. By the way, it's a feeling, right? Like,
Yeah.
nothing can stop you because, I mean, someone's like, oh, you guys are like, what the hell you guys calling? Like, you can be stopped. Yeah, we're not talking literally, folks. You're still a human, but it's when your mind is powerful, when you're already ahead of the game here in the subconscious. Nothing can phase you. That's the thing. Like, you get faced with everything. Like, I used to get this challenge, like, what's the worst that can happen? Okay, we know one thing in life that is certain is death, right? So okay, well, I do believe there's a better life out there. So guess what? That is the beginning of another life. So you look at it again, positive thought versus negative thought, right?
Yeah.
All these things, like we are conditioning ourselves to feel bad, the worst is going to happen, blah blah. But you know what? Look at the positive of every situation. I mean, we again 6 years ago. Wow, it's been 6 years already. COVID was in place, right? And it was a tragic, a lot of sadness, a lot of death and stuff. But amongst the same time, in the same period of time, many people shifted their lives, changed their lifestyle, changed businesses,
Yeah.
and succeeded. They found a way because being at home doing different things. Some people find out that they're not with the right partner. Other things they made different decisions. But the fact is, changes happen. In the
Yeah.
worst case scenarios, there's always something. I mean, you can be in the worst place and you find a nice blooming rose, or some sort
Yes.
of a something in the middle of nowhere that's
If
like,
you
wow,
if you're looking, man, if your eyes
if
are
you're
open,
looking.
you will find it. The Buddhists have a phrase, they call it or a practice of 2,000 things. There's always at any one time there's 2,000 things around you to be grateful for if you just pay attention.
Well, that's a powerful one, and it is they're very wise, in the way they send stuff. Unfortunately, we should be tapping more into the wisdom. But you're right. Look, I mean, you said it yourself. The heart is pumping. It's funny. The heart is pumping before you even realize you're alive, and when it stops, you're not going to realize you're not here because you'll be gone, right? So
Yeah.
it's before and after, and you don't even know about it. It's something that's happening. You got your pancreas that's working, 24/7 to get that insulin and all the sugars, happening. You got your kidneys doing all the filtration, working for you. Your eyesight is miraculously, giving you the stuff, adjusting to lights and all stuff. And we can give, multiple. These are just some of the medical, the clinical or the anatomy stuff that we have
Yeah.
to be careful. You're breathing the air. Thank God. I mean, it's some people may not be able to breathe. I mean, and you don't have to do anything about it. You just like it's something you sleep and you still breathe, right? You're
Yeah.
not stopping when you go to sleep. You know, we to your point, these are some of we can be grateful for just being
Every
with
one of
people.
those
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
Yep.
and not just being. You have a family that's being grateful. People sometimes are ungrateful. They have everything. They're still ungrateful. They want everything that the other people have. Not everybody. Some people can be rich financially, but then they're not rich. Culturally or family wise, they don't have good friends. I mean, you have a lot of money. Sometimes people are just there with you because of the money. They're not there because they love you, right? And by the way, I'm not saying this is a general rule, but these
Yeah.
are
You just
things
don't
that
know. Yeah.
sometimes, yeah, there's a lot of ways to see, to seek the gratitude and be happy. And if we are content, that's the other thing, being content with what you have, any given point at
Yeah.
any
Right
place,
now. Yeah.
anywhere. That's it. Listen, if I can have enough food for the day, I'm healthy, I am not fearful for my life, and I have a roof over my head. I mean, you can't beat that.
Yeah. What else is there?
Right? I mean, that's really what the real pleasure of life, right? You're surrounded with love, and you're peaceful, you're happy, you're safe, you got
Yeah.
enough food, you're not worried about tonight. Tomorrow is a new day. You start fresh again. It's a new reality. So
Yeah.
I look at life as it's a moments in time. It's reality that resets every morning. And the only
Yep.
reason we kind of recognize it, I mean, that's the difference between the dream world and the real world, because the dream world scenarios change. In the real world, scenarios kind of like you come back to the same place, same bed, same people, same stuff, but different, I guess, script stuff that happens in that day. Every day, sometimes you wake up in the morning like, what the hell is going to be today?
Yeah.
And because you don't know what the day is going to throw at you.
Yeah.
but
You know,
but
here's
but it,
I got it. I heard
yeah.
this the other day. That's really cool. It kind of goes to what you're saying. So they took 100 people who are innately positive. They're just naturally positive all the time. They took 100 people who are super negative all the time. And they did a test. They said, I want you to look through this newspaper and I want you to count how many pictures are in there. And if you count them right, I'll give you $100. The people who are super positive, as they were going through there, they saw the picture that said, there are 57 pictures in here. And as they were going through, they also saw that in the back that there was another picture that said if you mention this picture, you'll get another $100. 85% of the people that are innately positive saw both of those pictures and got the answer right and got the extra $100. The people who were negative, they counted through there, and 85% of them didn't see either one of those pictures. They didn't read them and comprehend them. And so the way that our minds process things out in the real world, if you're trying to build a business, if you're trying to do things, if you want to see more opportunities and find more opportunities and meet new people, if you're in a positive state, you're going to be open and receptive to being able to see and receive things. And when you're in a negative state, you're going to be closed off to those things. So this is how we were created. This is to be positive, open, and the world is, there's more opportunities coming to you. And the same thing is in reverse.
Well, it's funny that example you gave. It's because you know what? They probably focused on like defeating the concept. Like I want to see that that cannot be or some other stuff.
Yeah.
We sometimes we go the extreme way to kind of go against the current or go against everything because we just want to we want to prove that that's the case, and that's the problem. Again, positive thinking. To your point, what's the worst that going to happen? I'm not going to win.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. No big deal.
Exactly.
There's always tomorrow. There's always tomorrow. That's the thing. Like by the way, even tomorrow's not guaranteed. If I don't win, well, it's not meant to be. Cool. Not for
Yeah.
me. See, again, it's how we frame our mindset. And we can change the way the world. And by the way, we're like a big dish. Those satellite dishes that we see that kind of turn around, and they like I think in Arizona and some other place, they're all over the world, right? These satellite dishes, big ones that actually do receive from satellites. It's really you turn it to whatever frequency you want, folks, and you can absorb as much as you want, or you can just kind of shut it down and get no reception, have
Yeah.
zero, frequencies coming through, and that's
Yeah.
it. You can keep turning the knob. There's nothing because you shut down this dish. But open the dish, let it be, all over the space. Get
Dude,
all
I can't help it, but like you just brought up something that is amazing because my life has changed. Once I started quieting all the noise and everything, there's something behind the noise, right? And that's
Mhm.
basically what you're talking about. When you quiet the noise, you literally become a receiver to the universe. And Nikolai Tesla and Albert Einstein said the exact same thing, and 100% of their knowledge for their inventions, their successful inventions, came when they were either asleep or in a daydreaming. And they just came fully formed when they were in a state of no mind. Rick Rubin is probably the most famous record producer of all time. And he doesn't actually produce music. He doesn't come up with music. All he does is he's kind of a yogi at this point. Like he's kind of a Buddhist, following all their philosophies. And what he does, he has an innate ability to be able to get a musician to be able to clear his mind of all of the noise and just allow something deeper, something more, that receiver that connects with the universe, with God, whatever you want to say. And when that happens, when the noise is quiet, it's we connect and we are this receiver, like you were speaking about a second ago, that connects with the universe, and amazing things happens. And this has happened to me when over the last year and a half, 2 years, it started happening to me in weird ways. But Rick Rubin's book taught me one thing. He basically said, if you're ever trying to be creative, if you're ever trying to come up with music or whatever, you just quiet your mind with breath work, ask the universe for something, and then go back to breathing. And I was like, man, that's some BS. That ain't gonna work, whatever. And I tried it and I was like, holy shit. Like because I wrote a book, and I think 3 people have read it. It was just kind of like a milestone for me. It was a golf book using breath work and whatever. And I had this amazing experience with a guy that I work with, and I wanted to put it in a book form and share it with the world. So I write everything I know down about this book, and literally a week and a half later, I've written everything down the book, and I got 35 pages. I didn't write a book. I wrote a pamphlet, right? I didn't have enough information to fill a book up. And so I remembered I was stuck for about, I don't know, 4 or 5 days of writing every day. Now all of a sudden I can't write anything because I didn't know what else to write. And I remember what Rick Rubin said in his book. And I was like, all right, I'm going to try this. I went, got in a quiet space, started breathing. 10 minutes in, I asked, all right, what else could I put in this book to fill it up? And then I went back to breathing. I didn't try to find an answer. I went back to breathing. And it was like a waterfall just flooded me. I had more than enough information. It took me 10 minutes to get my mind quiet, another 10 seconds to ask the question. 10 seconds later, I had more information to write than I could possibly have put in in that book. And it's we open up the signal to the universe, infinite flow of information when we quiet the mind and we get out of our own way. So I just thought when you were saying that, that's a perfect.
Oh no, no. Oh, well, thank you, Mike. It is again the power of the mind, the power of subconscious, the power of connection, meditation, quiet breathing. All these things are tools that are being used, you know, millennia before
Yes.
to date. And there were practices that were always there, and they've worked, and they still do work, and there's and anyone that applies them correctly, and a lot of successful people will tell you they do these things
Yeah.
regularly. It's not some it's like that's part of the discipline, right? And they make it work, and it helps. I do similar stuff myself, and it works. And you know what? You're right. You close your mind, you relax, you don't kind of like too much going on in the stuff. Sometimes you just kind of zone out, and you allow things to happen, and you start seeing clear. Like literally, it's lucid, visual stuff. You start
Yeah.
seeing all this stuff. I mean, even the idea of doing this show was exactly that. It's like a point in my life, and I was like, I need something. What do I do? And I just cleared it. Not, I get the vision. I had it from day one, and we're building that vision until whatever it takes, to get as big as it gets. And by the way, this is we're just you two and I talking, and hopefully we have people that will be taking this, and applying some of the stuff that you just talked about here. But the idea is whatever we're talking about here, folks, anyone watching and listening can do the same, can
Yes.
achieve it, regardless. I mean, you've heard the story, folks, here with Mike, going through a very difficult time, years and years and years to establish. At 40, he's finally kind of closing that noise and changing his life, and really now changing the lives of others because now he knows it better. He's
Yeah.
he is the expert at this. Now no one can say, "Hey, Mike, what do you know about this?" You know something about it. You've been through it yourself, and that's the whole thing. And so, folks, life is going to throw a lot of stuff at us or our loved ones, and if we're prepared to kind of deal with it, and have the right tools. And that's the good news. We're providing the tools. The
Yeah.
tools right now. For example, in this show, reach out to Mike, check out his program. See, it's not a long program, which actually that's a pretty good. I mean, it's like a very quick one, and you can get some solutions. Again, we have tools, folks. If you're not sure, ask. If you don't know how to do things, ask around. Where our job is to get as much of this out there to the world, and maybe someone, couple of people will see the value of it and they use it. That's all there is. Mike, I want to
Yeah.
really thank you for being with us. We exceeded the hour
Thank
here,
you.
and we can spend another hour easily having a good conversation here. And so thank you for the work you do. Thank you for sharing your stories. And you know what? These are real stories. They're not fake. They're not, this is not a show that's scripted. We're having a real talk. And really that's the insights that you just gave today can really transform somebody's life. And folks, again, listen to this. Maybe you take one piece today, you take another piece from another person, another show, another stuff, and you add it up. That's what I'm doing. I joke about this. I'm the first customer of my shows. I take all this stuff. It actually kind of helps me. It keeps me going, keeps me motivated.
Yeah.
And every day I look forward to these things because I'm always learning. I mean, it's true. I actually apply these. I had this question the other day with someone. Like, you go to college, you spend, I don't know, 4 years to a bachelor's, maybe says 7 or 6 to get a master's. How many lectures do you possibly can do on those credits? We've done, for example, here in the world of podcasts. I mean, we did about 1,400 shows, right? But if in the world of podcasts, there's millions of podcasts, or millions of episodes out there, right? These are all lectures from the top experts in the world, and you're not going to get them in a classroom in a college program. Period. Maybe some of them are, but most of those experts are all people who have actually had their education, they have their experience in life, experience in corporate. So whatever your expertise is that you're looking for, you can find. That's why YouTube works. That's why we have, podcast is becoming the number one place to go for information and insights and real stuff, because you're not getting the fake stuff. You're getting the good stuff from the right people. So search the right source, and look it up. I mean, everybody has their website, they have information. Do your work and due diligence. The rest is history. You will change, you will transform, mind,
Mhm.
body, spirit, everything. So Mike, thank you so much, man, for being with us.
Thank
Any
you.
words of wisdom you want to share before we close the show today?
Man, I guess I would like to just say if you guys are out there struggling with anxiety and depression, you are not broken. You just don't understand how to operate the system that God gave you.
That's powerful. And there you go, folks. So with those words of wisdom from Mike, we'll be ending our show today. I'm Hurricane H. Hope you had a good time with us, learned a few things, and do apply them. We'll be talking soon. New day, new show, new topic. Bye for now.